God to be faithful. We're asking God to do more for us when we're not faithful in what we have. I'm in a financial cul-de-sac. Why am I right now? But
Welcome back. I'm Demetric, a Christian girl in therapy, because I need it.
the final book that I want to talk about is my book. It is called The Way Financial Journal, and it is written by me. I wrote this at a time I was on a consecration, I believe, with my sister, and I was laying before the Lord, and of course, thinking and talking to God about finances. And he said to me, write a financial journal. And I'm like, child, I'm in the middle of a financial issue. I'm in a financial cul-de-sac. Why am I writing? But I did it. I actually took this picture in Paris. My niece and I and another friend of mine went to Paris during Christmas 2024. So anyway, was it 24 or 23? One of those years, whatever, went to Paris. I love Paris. I've been 2 more times since then, okay? So anyway, I actually took this picture on the Champs-Élysées one night when we were there. So anyway, so that's why I put that, because for me, at a time in my life, Paris was inspirational, and then it's aspirational. The Arc de Triomphe at the end, triumph at the end, triumph at the end. I talk a little bit about myself, about how my financial struggles self-inflicted. You know what I mean? I'm out here buying, and a lot of times that comes because you're looking outside of you, outside of God, and looking at other people and other things. At a time in my life, that's what I was doing. And when God took away the credit cards, I found Klarna. Okay, the devil. Not that Klarna is the devil, but I'm just saying the devil. It's like, oh, you can't do it that way, then we can do it this way. Further digging a hole. You know what I mean? So anyway, definitely have to pray to get past some of those things. And then a lot of times that stuff comes from childhood. It comes from looking outside of yourself, but it could also come from internal struggle and internal turmoil. There's not one scripture in here about finance, and God inspired the scripture, and I believe that was on purpose, because God is our source. Our jobs and all this stuff are just resources. God is our source. So, everything that we have is His. We have to learn how to dedicate all of that stuff back to Him, Lord. Well, and when I say dedicate it back to Him, it's His anyway, but in your mind, because I think we don't get that. It's His. He is allowing us to use these things. He has given us the strength to go out and work, but all of this stuff belongs to Him. My home, this is God's. He's allowing me to borrow it. So whatever He, has for me to do, He asked for me to do with it, that's what I have to do. Yeah. So anyway, I think I beat that dead horse. Anyway, it's not a dead horse. It's about my Jesus. Okay, don't do that. So anyway, so I do have pages in here that, where you can write down your income, your debt, current savings, and your faith for future. You know what I mean? So it doesn't mean that because you're in this trouble. Now, I don't believe that God is, going to drop money out of the sky, but I think He can give you a better idea on how to manage your money, how to be a good steward over it. And sometimes you need to see that in order to be able to do that. So you write it down, and then you write down everything you spend. So, write down what you spend, and then you get to see exactly where your money is going, and you get to see some of the mistakes that you're making as an individual. So, so this is the book, and then I have places here for you to journal. I have a place in the back for you to make calculations on, so I have, before this, I wish I had brought it here, but I have like these little journals that are about this big, like 3x5, where I call them my bill books. I write down everything in the bill books. Before this, that's what I did. Well, I do still have it because I like to also carry it in my purse. So, but yeah, I come back to this when it's like, okay, God, here's everything. What are we gonna do? What are we doing? You know what I mean? So, but anyway, so I also have this digitally. So, if you don't want a hard copy, if you want to download it, you can do that as well. So I do have it digitally as well. But anyway, there's a place for you to journal here, and like I said, a place for calculations. And then also in the back, I have a place where I ask questions. What changes have you made in your relationship with Yahweh, your finances, and your call to stewardship? Because we are called to stewardship. What victories has Yahweh given you throughout the process? And I have several pages of that because victory from month to month could be different. So there's a place for you to write. I just feel like writing stuff down, having a record to go back and look at. So that's why I started that whole bill book thing before I even started this, because I have books going back 5-10 years, so I can see what I spend, and then I can see where I started to spend more money on credit cards because I was out there doing. And I don't, it's amazing because I renovated my house without loans. So I worked and paid, and still was able to save. And thank God I had a savings because I had to go in it at one point to, finish up some things that I needed to do in the house. But at another point, it was like, I'm barely making it. I'm like, God, what is happening? How was I able to renovate an entire house? But now I'm struggling. You know what I mean? So, later on. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, how does this happen? But I can see that through my bill book. Okay? You can see that. And, but if you're already in the position and you know that times are hard, um, you know, start submitting and committing your finances to God as well. I think we, a lot of times forget about that, but He wants to be in every part of our lives. As a matter of fact, I just saw this video on Instagram where this guy was talking about in the ark, there was no steering wheel because it was only meant to float. God was the navigator. So, and that's what we need to do in our lives. We are trying to drive when all we're supposed to do is float. We're sheep. We're not meant to carry anything. And the burden of finances, we're not meant to carry that. But because we've gotten ourselves here, thank God we serve a good God who is willing to forgive and and move us forward. Thank God He's that type of God. A faithful God, a God who gives us power to get wealth. And but we've got to be faithful. We're asking God to do more for us when we're not faithful in what we have, which is why in some cases, not everybody, because you could have had a catastrophic thing happen in your life and it put you in a financial situation. But a lot of times we are getting ourselves into situations, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, I went out there and I was spending to get myself in a situation. It could be, I'm not being obedient to God. God told me to do XYZ and I didn't do it. So now I can't move forward. So, that leads me into a testimony of mine that at one time, before I started renovating my house, I wanted to renovate my house. And I said to God, I want to renovate my house. And me and my friend Julie, who's still my dear friend, but we were counselors together at high school. And we were talking about tithing, and she asked me, do you tithe? And I was like, I can't afford to tithe. And she was like, girl, you got to tithe. Now, mind you, I grew up Seventh-day Pentecostal, and yes, tithing was definitely taught. Okay, so I know about tithing and knew about tithing. But I wasn't doing it because I was looking at my finances, and again, the ark, I was trying to steer when God is like, no, baby, you need to float and you need to let me handle the navigation. So I listened to her, and thank God for iron sharpening iron. And because I was in the mindset of I can't do it, because I saw what was left at the end of my check when I was not tithing. So I was like, I can't afford it. But what I decided to do was, I don't care who does not get paid, I'm paying my tithe. And before that, I had gone to administration and I had said to them, well, I don't know if it was before because I can't remember the exact timeline, but it could have been before. I had gone to administration at the school and was like, is there anything for after school? They were like, no, we don't have any, after school, because I wanted, to make extra money. And one of the APs at the time said to me, one day she just came, I was still at work, and she came and she said, will you come and help me call these students, because we're working on FTE, that's how you get funding. And we needed to either say the kids were in our school or not in our school. We needed to get them off of our roster if they weren't in our school. And she asked me if I would stay and help her, and I did. And we called, and I didn't get paid to do that. I just said, oh, sure. So I stayed and I did that. And, that was that. She said, thank you. And she appreciated it. I knew she did, because it was just me and her. So, otherwise it would have just been her. So, and she didn't know it at the time, but I was already crying out, oh, God, you're so good. And it just came to me now that she didn't know it at the time, that I was crying out for God, that I needed, more finances. I wanted to renovate my house. I wanted to, be able to save. I wanted to be able to give, all that kind of thing. But she didn't know it at the time. But she came and asked me to do that for free. And I said yes. And out of that yes, I don't know how long after, but it wasn't much longer after, she came to me and said, we have something after school. Do you want to work? Do you want to not just work? Do you want to be in charge of it? And I said, absolutely. So that led to me being in charge of after school and summer school for 7 years. So, and that's how I was able to still save and renovate my house. God is so good, but I had to become faithful with my finances. I started tithing before that happened for me. And God opened up that door. So, you have to be faithful. God is looking for obedience. And I was not being obedient. And not as soon as, I don't know the time frame, but it was within, months or whatever. Within that, a certain time, whenever God's timing came, let me just say it that way. In God's timing, He opened up that door for me and allowed me to do the work that I've been able to do. This stuff you see behind me is a part of it. So He, opened up the door for me to be able to do that. And He deserved all honor and praise for that. So if you're ready to get started, I will have everything linked. Yes. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. This was a lot. This is a lot. So I don't know how I'm gonna break this down. Maybe it'll be 2 parts or something. But anyway, yeah. So, or maybe even 3, because I may do this one separate. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Listen to this. I hope it inspires you to go out and get you some resources and to study the Bible, get to know more about God's character, and so anyway, and grow in Him. It's definitely a wonderful thing. That was a lot of talking. I'm thirsty. Anyway, it's been wonderful getting to know God and to see the growth in myself. Oh, listen, that's a whole nother thing. I am gonna do some videos about my testimony, and I definitely can't do that in one sitting. So that's gonna be, a couple videos. So probably like this one. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and subscribe, follow, all of the things. Everything will be linked. Anyway, take care. Bye.